Awesome. All right.
Ooh.
Welcome everybody. I think this is chapter 10 of our conversations. Um, Anniversary of sorts. So, so I wanted to.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, go ahead, please.
No, yeah. Go ahead. Preface it if you want.
Yeah. So there's two things that I wanted to talk about tonight. One was to um, not tie off, but at least just spend a little bit more time on our topic from last time. We are talking about the persecutions that Christians face in America, the persecutions that trans people face in America, and then the second topic is the one that's come up just now, which is this question. We've got like a perfect example from the get go for this now, which is this book that's a children's book about the true story of these two male penguins in a zoo who were given an egg and raised that baby penguin together. And the obvious gay allegory or metaphor or analogy or whatever that represents, and whether that's appropriate for children or if it's, yeah, if there's some issue with that. Um,
Yeah.
how does that sound as as a a
Yeah. Sure.
outline
Uh,
for tonight?
yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to hyper focus on any one specific book in particular, but I think just the broad topic of what type of books should be allowed in schools. I think is
Mm-hmm.
more my focus. I believe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a big topic. I think this is a good place to start because it's the most um, pure situation of like this is kids learning about the fact that gay people exist, um,
Sure.
rather than there are other books that also contain, maybe some kind of like sexual encounter between people, or there's like other things that people might find objectionable about it. This is like a very, you know, there's no graphic discussions of penguin sex or anything like that. It's just, two male penguins raising a baby.
Right. Right. So the criticisms I read of the book the controversies
Mm,
anyway
mm-hmm,
was that it had like homosexual overtones within the book.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's something
So
that you feel like is a legitimate criticism, that a book for children like shouldn't involve,
shouldn't
shouldn't have
celebrate
gay
or
people as part of the story.
it shouldn't celebrate or promote um, the gay that type of lifestyle or culture. I guess. I guess it's
Okay.
important for me to
Mm.
kind of preface and maybe if you wanted to take note of this, whether it's like you write it down or
Oh
just as
yeah,
a mental
let's do
note,
it.
um, just just know that in my view of like how a Christian society would be run, like how gay people would be treated within that society, like me personally, and I think most Christians agree on this, that we would not go around stringing up gay people and trans people in trees or anything like that. We want them to be protected and have the same human rights that the
Mm-hmm.
rest of us have. We want them to be able to, we don't want to ban them from places in society necessarily. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no real place that we want to. I mean, I don't think that I can't see like a terrible outcome in a Christian world for gay people, personally, but it's just kind of like at the same time we have to practice our Christian beliefs, and that involves
Mm-hmm.
not promoting things like homosexuality, especially to our children at very young ages when their minds are very, they're very impressionable. They're very naive. They succumb to peer pressure very easily. It's just not something we I believe personally that they have the maturity to absorb yet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would I want to teach people? Would I want to teach kids maybe at an older age when they're more mature? Would I want to teach them that gay people exist and that you should not discriminate or commit hate crimes against them? That I would teach kids, but that would probably be as far as I would go.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of like preface that, like, and just try to keep that in mind when I'm talking about this issue and maybe all the other ones that I might have as from a Christian standpoint.
Mm-hmm. And this is I mean, just to remark, so this is your personal connection to Christianity.
Well,
there are people who will say, there are people who will 100% celebrate gay people, and there will be people who will 100% say that we should hate crime them. Right? There's people in both kind of directions, so to speak.
So I recognize that there are people that would hate crime them,
Mm-hmm.
but the difference for me is that is that something that Jesus would have done? Is that something that Jesus would do? So I think if you're a Christian and you're taking actions where your first thought isn't that, then I don't know if you can really call yourself a Christian.
Mm-hmm. Wait, so if your first thought is hate criming, or I guess would you say the same for like banning gay or trans people from places in society?
Well, banning is not like it depends, because banning is not like a violent action.
Well, I mean, if you go somewhere that you're legally banned from, and somebody calls the police, they come and they fuck you up, or right? I mean,
well, they shouldn't fuck you up if they're doing their jobs right, but.
Well, I mean, they'll arrest you if you resist. Then they might beat you up, right? I mean,
well, yeah, that cuts both ways, like if someone violates, is violent towards a gay or trans person, the cops will come and do the same thing. So, I mean, we have protected spaces. We have.
Well, wait, but there's no protection like that if if there's two people being beat up right next to each other and one is gay and one is not gay, the cops aren't only going to rescue the gay one, right?
What do you mean?
If like two people are getting mugged next to each other and one of the people getting mugged is gay and the other person is not gay, the cops aren't only going to protect the gay person who's getting mugged, right? They're going to that's a right that just citizens or whatever people in our society have. But if you are gay and you go into the wrong place, a place that you're banned from, or right now it's a hypothetical place that we're talking. We could try to make it concrete if you want, but hypothetically, if somebody is banned from a place and they're banned because they're gay and they go in there, somebody could call the cops and they can remove them, and they'll. I mean, whether you want to call that violence or not, if you go in somewhere and then somebody drags you out of it, and if you resist, they'll beat you up. I mean, that's violence, right?
Well, if they resist, they may tase you, pepper spray you, and then restrain you, detain you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the system. That's the system we all agreed upon. We agreed that we have a rule of law and that we give police officers a monopoly on violence to enforce that law.
Well, wait. Is that an argument that you believe generally holds? If we as a society agree on something legally, then that's like kind of, it's fair to say like, okay, well then that's how we should do things.
We don't have a pure democracy, and that's why
of course, yeah.
That's why I think the system works as intended,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just like a tyranny of the majority.
Mm-hmm.
These things had to be put through a process to
Yep.
get where they are. So
Yep.
so I think the process is working, the system is working as intended, and you can disagree or agree with the outcomes from it, but that is at the end of the day the system we all agreed on.
Mm-hmm. So we all agreed to gay marriage is good, gay marriage should exist, should be legal, gay people should be able to legally and spiritually get married, the same as people who aren't gay. Right? That's something that we decided, right? So that's something that
Well,
you hold.
they could,
That's what we should do.
well, in my view, even if the state is quote unquote, marrying gay people,
Mm-hmm.
they still aren't truly married in my world.
Sure, in your world, but from a legal perspective, and obviously from the perspective of the churches or synagogues or mosques or wherever they're getting married,
Yeah.
they are. Yeah.
Well, the thing is that they're kind of ignoring. I don't know what marriage means anymore when they kind of translate, because in my view, it's not really that they violated anything.
Mm.
Like, because they're not by a Christian standard marrying gay people, right? So it's more like kind of LARPing.
No, I mean they're getting married by priests in churches, right? So that's pretty Christian. I mean that's a fairly Christian thing to do.
Not
Priest, church,
well,
that's reasonably Christian, right?
we wouldn't recognize those churches.
Well,
as
you wouldn't, but they they might
Right.
say the same about you, right? They might say, oh, he's he's not a real
they
Christian, or whatever, right?
They could try, but they would have the majority of the Christian church, in opposition to their.
Well, no,
religion.
I mean, the Pope said that like gay people should be accepted, right? Like that's a
Yeah,
good
the
chunk of
Pope-
people. That's a pretty Catholics are like a pretty big chunk of people.
They sure are.
That's a
They are,
ton.
and
It's a ton of people. Yeah.
Well, the thing about Catholics is that they agree with our doctrine 100%. We just don't agree with theirs.
Well, you obviously don't agree when it comes to,
Well,
to
because they
certain,
added a
certain
bunch
practices,
of stuff.
rights for gay people, right?
Well, that would be one. I mean, well,
That's
the
an
thing
area
is
of contention.
that a Christian, your I wouldn't even say that those people are truly married, even if a so-called priest did it, because I don't.
Wait, you think those
No.
aren't even priests? You would say that those are not even priests.
We would say that those people have not even been given the authority by God, because they're going against the word of God, basically.
Sure,
So,
and they would
I
they would
don't
maybe
even
say the
know-
same thing about you, right? So it's kind of he
What-
said, she said, right?
No, so it's them versus the book, basically.
Versus the book.
The book usually wins. The Bible.
The book usually wins. What do you mean when you say the book usually wins? So this is
It
this is
means
something that just to say from my background and why this is something that feels very very foreign to me. So in the Jewish faith,
Yeah.
like the OG Abrahamic religion, right? For us, we've got the book, but then we've got millennia, not just centuries, but millennia of midrash, which are investigation into the book and analysis of the book and analysis of analysis of analysis of analysis of the book. And it's like a big part of what our legal judiciary system is, that it's kind of like you have precedents that get set. A lot of that comes from from Jewish kind of this sort of analytical study. And so for us, it's like, oh, well, if you look up this passage in the book, it says this. It's like, okay, sure. You'd be onto something 2,000 years ago, but we've actually progressed since then. And literally just this book says this. Well, you're missing all of the notes that like millions of people have dedicated their lives to investigating. So just to say the book wins, is that the same as how it works in Christianity? You guys don't analyze and investigate the faith. You don't have like a progression of like theological
Well,
teaching and discovery, or
well, I mean, it's very specific. There are at least, you know, maybe 6 or 7 different, or I think it's like 5 or 6 different passages about um, homosexuality not being morally accepted, and then there are probably more passages about the importance of the union of a man and woman joining
mm-hmm.
together as one flesh, for the purpose of procreating, and that those are kind of like the two main missions from God given to us is to, one, marry with a woman, man and woman create a holy unity, and for the purpose of that holy unity, they go forth and multiply and be fruitful. Um, so
That's specifically Christian, because I thought,
not specifically, but I'm
yeah.
saying that's I'm just letting you know that's what we're operating under. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and and then also there are plenty of passages that, right, at least I think 6 or 7 that talk about, homosexuality being an abomination
Yeah, I
or
think
being against
there's
God.
3 different places actually. Yeah. So if the Bible says something is an abomination, it's really just black and white. You just can't do it. It's like really bad, right? There's no analysis to be done. It's in the book.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about?
Well, we
Yeah. Well, sorry, I
we
didn't want
have
to interrupt.
observable kind of no. Well. So how do we end up believing that this is true, right? Like it's not just because it comes from the book.
Well, no,
It's
no, no.
because
I, I didn't even want to move on to that. I just wanted to ask. So, like, how do you feel about the
uh,
eating of shellfish and people who eat shellfish? So I'm on the East Coast. We got mussels, clams. I think lobster counts as shellfish. It's got a shell. We have crab too. Not as good as the West Coast, but we got crab.
yeah,
A lot
yeah,
of people eat that stuff. We got clam chowder. We got
yeah.
all kinds of things. How do you feel about that?
Uh-huh. So after, um, so in the Bible for us, we
Mm-hmm.
got the updated patch 2.0,
Oh
um,
yeah,
after Jesus came
interesting.
down, and he basically taught his apostles that these foods were kosher.
Wait, say that again.
He basically told the apostles that these foods were no longer like off the table.
Where did he say that? I'm not familiar with that.
One of his I believe it. I think it was Peter. I would have to find the exact one for you. I would if I could right now, but I'm driving. But it's like one of the apostles said that it was perfectly fine to eat these foods, the shellfish and bush meat and stuff like that. It's not something we observe in Christianity.
No, I know that it's not something you observe,
Yeah,
but you said that the book
yeah,
wins, and if it's in the book, that's what you do. And you referred back to the
right.
Old
So
Testament
so when I
specifically
refer to the
when you were
book,
talking
I'm
about
talking about
that.
the New
Not to the
Testament.
New Testament,
The new
right?
the New Testament is the book. Yeah.
Well, oh no. You referred to the Old Testament when you were talking
Right.
about homosexuality, when you were talking about be
Well,
fruitful and multiply. You
it,
were talking about the Old Testament. You weren't talking about the
but
New
it's still
Testament when you
there.
quoted any of those. Sure,
It's still,
but
yeah,
just
it's
to
still there.
right, so we're not like contradicting
If you
ourselves or
want,
jumping around here, right?
no, we're not. We're not. But if you want to talk about the similarities between the Old and New Testament, we could talk about that. I just don't think it's relevant to the
No,
conversation.
I'm literally just repeating back to you what you the statements that you made to me, right?
Yeah.
So you said, if it says this in the book, this is what you have to do. All of the things that you referred to were from the Old Testament, not the New Testament. When it came to
Okay.
when
You
it came to
you
when it came to being gay being an abomination, when it came to being fruitful and multiply, when it came to what it means for marriage, unless I missed any of those.
Which of those are not in the New Testament?
I think all of those are in the Old Testament.
Which of those are not in the New Testament?
I'm not aware of God calling being gay an abomination in the New Testament, but I could very easily be unaware of that. I just do positively know that it's in the Old Testament.
Oh, okay.
But it could be in the New Testament. I just don't know about it.
Okay, yeah, no, it is. I mean, or else we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So the point I was making when I said the book wins, meaning that I'm not going to take the word of a random person over the word of the Bible. Like, one random person does not hold authority over the book. That was the point I was trying to make.
Yeah, that's how your faith operates. Obviously, for Catholics, it does operate that way. So where I'm actually just looking this up because I'm curious.
Well,
Where does
Catholics,
it say?
it's kind of weird
Where does it say in the
because-
New Testament that being gay is an abomination? I'd like to know this stuff.
Well, not necessarily. There are there are no promotions of gay.
There's no promotions, but it never
no,
says that being gay is an abomination in the New Testament. It does in the Old Testament, and he said that you have to hold to that, but it doesn't in the New Testament, which is what you said. It has it.
It is considered immoral in the New Testament.
It's considered that, okay, but it doesn't say it's an abomination.
Those may not be the exact word. I'll have to look up the exact.
Does it talk about? It probably doesn't talk about shellfish being an abomination in the New Testament either, right?
Probably not. No.
It says it like 8 times for shellfish, 3 times for homosexuality in the Old Testament. I know that.
Yeah, I think there are even more in the New Testament about gay homosexuality being an immoral act or unnatural. Is usually that's the word. That's the word used in the New Testament to describe homosexuality in all these passages. It's an unnatural union or out of touch with nature or against nature.
So I think we've kind of dived into the books. Let's go back to, so you said, I'm just reading off your original statement, that you don't want to ban gay or trans people from places in society. And then, before we dived into the book, you seemed like maybe you weren't so sure about that. So
no,
I just want to correct the record.
I said we wouldn't want to, like, we wouldn't want to chase them around in the streets and line them up against the wall or string them up in a tree or any of that stuff. No violent, like. We want them to have the same human rights as everyone else, but we still have rules in society, and that we all abide by, and that we all.
What's an example of that?
I'm saying, so let's say we have a woman's bathroom and a men's bathroom, so only women can use women's bathroom.
To my knowledge, there's no contention currently around that for gay people. There used to be.
Oh, are we?
Right. In the 2000s, for example, okay. there was exactly the same kind of rhetoric around, like, gay people are predators. You don't want them in your bathrooms. They're going to be, assaulting everybody, right? And then that kind of faded. Gay marriage was legalized, recognized, and now that's being applied to trans people. But currently, is that something that you feel like a lesbian woman shouldn't be allowed in, like, a women's changing room? That's what you feel today, still at this point?
No. I thought we were talking about. You said what would be an example of, like, gay or trans people, or what would be an example of a violation of a rule or something like that.
Let's start with gay people.
Okay.
Just because it might be different answers. For each. For gay people. You would say a lesbian woman, I don't want her in my volleyball changing room. She's going to be ogling me. She might assault me. Is that how you feel currently today? There's the kinds of things people said, 20 years ago. Do you still
She
feel like
is.
that, or is that something that you were never on board with, or have moved away from?
No, that doesn't seem like a very like a problem unless there are women in that changing room or whatever that they feel it's a problem. I don't know, like, but on the surface it seems like whatever. If it if a gay like if a lesbian was in the locker room or changing or like
Mm-hmm.
how would anyone ever know?
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So
So
you
it's
feel
like
like.
keep things to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. It's like if you just kind of keep to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. You could get through. You could go through society, and feel like everybody else, basically.
Mm-hmm. So somebody who is gay might pass perfectly well. Nobody it's no nobody might know. If they tell people, maybe people would know, but if they don't tell people, you know, or maybe
Yeah, it's
people have some
possible no one ever
unbelievably
gets.
good gaydar and they suss it out or something. But in general,
Yeah,
it might be very easy to pass. Nobody knows. Nobody's even thinking about feeling uncomfortable, and they're just like
yeah.
other women. They're just in a changing room trying to change before they go, go swimming or go play volleyball or whatever.
It's strange. I met a gay rabbi today,
Oh, cool.
and it was it was kind of a strange feeling because I had a misconception about, well, or I was just unaware of the different Jewish uh, the different types of Judaism,
Mm-hmm.
and how some are very liberal and
Mm-hmm.
less religious than others. And
Yep.
there's the most modern one. I forgot what it's called, but it's kind of like the opposite of Orthodox. Um,
I would say reform. I don't know if there's like an even
Reform,
newer,
yeah,
but
I think
they
it's
play.
Reform. Yeah,
They have like musical instruments that they'll like play guitar. They'll sing in
yeah.
English. I don't. It makes me feel kind of uncomfortable, but
It does.
yeah.
What about that makes you feel uncomfortable?
It just seems weird. I don't know. It feels wrong. Um,
Interesting.
yeah, I grew up at a temple that was like, it's when we're praying, it's pretty much all in Hebrew. There's no musical instruments in the other
Uh
than like a
huh.
shofar, obviously for
Uh huh.
certain
So
holidays. But
so breaks with tradition kind of make you feel an awkwardness.
yeah, plus
Interesting.
to be honest, just like acoustic guitar singing along stuff is like just. I mean,
I think we
somebody
may.
around a campfire is already,
Yeah.
straining my yeah.
Yeah. Interesting because I think on this we might find some agreement in how I feel about
And
the
if they
more
start playing
liberal
Wonderwall or
churches.
Hey There Delilah, then it's just over.
What's that?
If they start playing Wonderwall or Hey There Delilah, then
Yeah,
it's all
right.
over. Yeah.
Oh
Um,
God, shoot me. Yeah.
yeah.
No, like yeah, I agree. So I think this might be something we agree on when it comes to kind
Mhm.
of like more updated versions of our religions or
Mhm.
whatever, and how they just kind of don't feel right or don't gel right, or
Mhm.
something feels off, right? So
Mhm.
I can definitely sympathize with you there. I think, and that is perfect for kind of a window in which you can kind of look into my world from,
Mhm.
because you're having a similar experience there. Okay, so
Mhm.
interesting. So, but about meeting this gay rabbi is that I, in my head, I was like, well, and this was a misconception by me,
Mhm.
obviously, but in my head, I was like, well, you know, he's a rabbi. There's no way he could be gay, right? Because I was catching all these strange vibes off of him. Like
Mhm.
it was kind of the typical, like, my gaydar was going off, right? It was like the
Mhm.
way he talks, the way he walks, his kind of the way he carries himself, and then he has a son, and the little boy, maybe like 3 years old, and he had a Spanish nanny, and he's just running around, and he's wearing these very violet purple clothes. And something was just kind of like, I was looking around and I saw him and I saw the sun, and I was just kind of like, huh, it's something. There's something going on here, and I can't quite put my finger on it. But then afterwards, we left, and I was with my client, and I said, "Hey, what? Is the rabbi still married? I didn't see his wife there." And she goes, "Oh, he's gay."
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, interesting. Well, I saw, he has a son. Oh, yeah, he had the son from a surrogate mother."
Mm.
And she's like, "Oh, I kind of helped him pick her out, and stuff like that." I was like,
Hmm.
"Okay." And like, so it's funny when you say gaydar, I kind of think there's like that's like an actual thing in a way,
Mm-hmm.
like, because it just kind of, yeah, and so that's what, like, my gut feeling has been right a bunch about a lot of things, and over time and experience, I kind of learned to trust it more. Um, but yeah, I mean, some of these books, I mean, so my whole thing is human flourishing, and I'm worried
Mm.
about the birth rates, and I'm worried about Christianity kind of losing ground. We have words like anti-Semitism and Islamophobia,
Mm-hmm.
but why don't we have a word for when Christians are being,
Mm.
um,
Rounded
bigoted
up,
to,
put into camps.
like, yeah, like, no, not that, but I mean,
Mm.
well, no, I don't see Muslims being rounded up and put in camps in America, but yet
Well,
they're still,
there was a ban, but that's fine. Yeah, no, that's fair.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
fair point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, yeah, like, there's a whole lot of what I would call Christophobia going around,
Mm.
and nobody seems to bat an eye, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you kind of had a strong reaction to what I was saying about a book when I said yikes,
Mm-hmm.
because this book looks like it's targeting a very young audience,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what kind of brought out the yikes in me. And you had a similar yikes reaction to
I
my
had a
yikes,
yikes to your yikes. Yeah, it was a yikes chain
where you're
reaction.
like yikes, and I was kind of thinking, is that maybe a subtle kind of, what's that word I'm looking for? Kind of like a subtle, like, unconscious Christophobia within you, maybe?
Oh, you think it was like a unconscious bias against?
Yeah, like an unconscious bias against Christians.
Yeah, I think in this case no, because it was a reaction to something you
Not
said.
Christian reaction.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's it's something
that's
that.
going to be my.
Mhm.
That's a perfectly normal reaction for me to have as a Christian, but to
Well,
that reaction,
it's an
you,
unusual reaction for a Christian, right? I mean, most like
it is.
70% of Americans support gay marriage. I don't know exactly the overlap of like Christians supporting gay marriage versus. We could try to look this up.
Yeah,
Oh, someone's asking if you're a
Poland
streamer.
usually.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Actually, can I shout you out? I forget your. I keep forgetting your
Oh, you
Twitch
could
name.
you could it.
Um,
I I'm going to change it so that because I abbreviated it to
oh, okay.
KFJ Sifu, but I'm going to just change it to KungFuJoe Sifu, like, just spell it all out. I had a problem putting KungFuJoe on Twitch because someone had already taken the
Oh,
name,
classic.
but
Yeah.
I just need to, yeah, classic. So I just need to,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Okay, so
add
I've
some
typed it out for the caller. I think Kung Fu Joe Sifu. I think I got that right.
KFJ.
That's what it's going to be. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. You can
yeah.
look me up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Um,
And
mm-hmm.
mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, so for me, um, I was thinking like one step ahead to what does this reaction mean, and
Yeah.
it's possible that I misunderstood what that is, but I don't think I did. My reaction was, wow, this person doesn't want kids to know that
Young
it's
kids.
okay to be to be gay, even if they themselves are gay, right? Because people don't become gay. It seems like pretty much people are basically born whatever sexual orientation they are for the most part. There can be shifts, people can
Yeah.
discover things, but it seems like mostly that's like pretty stable throughout people's lives. Obviously, when you're a teenager, you don't know what the fuck is going on, and sometimes
Yeah. Well,
some people have
I
feelings
mean, when you're a
about
young
different things
kid,
very
you really
early.
don't
Some
know what's
people,
going
you
on.
know, but that seems to be generally it's like and there's tons of times it's like, oh wow, looking back earlier in life, oh yeah, obviously I did X, I'm gay. Oh, obviously this person that I know was gay. Like, when I knew them earlier, like if I knew what that was, I would have known. Like, oh sure, that makes sense, right? There's lots of stories like this where it's like, okay, even as like a very little kid, this is kind of clear. So I mean, it seems like it's the case that they're, and it's whatever, like 10%. I think for Gen Z, something like 20% of Gen Z is LGBTQ. I don't know the breakdown within that, but I'm guessing its majority is like gay or bi. I can't imagine the majority is like trans. That seems it's probably more likely like mostly gay or bi. So it's like something like, I don't know, say 15% of Gen Z is probably gay or bi. So it's not like it's even like a tiny minority. It's like 1 in 10 or more than that. Of if you have 20 kids in the classroom, statistically like 3 of them are going to be gay or bi, and they'll be like, oh hey, these penguins, and it's a true story too. It's not like this is even like made up.
Right.
This is something that exists.
Yeah.
That these penguins, they raised a baby penguin.
Um,
I don't know how the book ends. Please don't spoil it if you have read it. Um, right, but for me, it's like for me, um, I think it's hard not to interpret your reaction of like yikes as like fairly hateful, if not in intent, then in outcome. That it's like if what you
I'd be
wanted to
careful there.
happen would happen, it
I'd be
would it
careful.
would greatly
I'd be
damage a lot of kids. Is my reaction to your reaction.
okay. I'd be careful about calling Christianity hateful.
No, not Christianity. Absolutely not saying that about Christianity. I'm saying that about
Well, that was
exactly what you said. If you want to
yes.
make the claim that you represent all of Christianity, we can try to look into those numbers and see even how popular you are among Christians in terms of your viewpoint on this topic. But
Hold
it
on here.
definitely wasn't
Now,
like you
not
Christians,
for
Christian belief detected, right?
if not for my Christian belief, would I have that yikes reaction?
I think tons of people do. I mean, there are lots of places in the world that are pretty homophobic that are not Christian. I mean, lots of the Islamic and Arab worlds. There's a lot of homophobia, even
Sectarian
in
Christian.
Europe, even in more progressive or more not so not so religious places. There's still homophobia. I mean, there's a lot of homophobia in a lot of different places. China, I think there's probably I don't want to speak with too much confidence because I don't know, but not primarily a Christian nation, and I imagine there's still probably homophobia there.
So you don't think my reaction comes from my Christian belief?
I I think that it so I think that people could have that reaction without having those Christian beliefs, and
I
I think
understand that.
Christians could not have that reaction. So I think it's overlapping, but it's overlapping with lots of things, and it's not like so if I were to be
Well, how
like,
about
well, let
how
me,
about me personally?
sorry.
How about me personally, since you and I are the ones talking?
Well, so here's my thing. Here's how I would explain it. If you were to say like, oh yikes about that book, and my reaction of yikes were coming from, wow, this person made this statement. This statement feels like a really Christian thing to say, and that makes me feel yikes. Then that would be, I think, like a fair definition of like a Christianophobic remark, right? If it's like, oh, this makes me feel like this person is really Christian, and that makes me feel whatever, then that would be Christianophobic. But that statement coming from anybody for any reason, I would have the same reaction
Hold
to.
on. So let me test that. If I was a politician who signed an anti-gay bill into law, would you think, boy, that's the most atheist thing I've ever seen?
No.
Okay. Would you guess that person is probably Christian?
Probably Christian or Muslim, or because you differentiate Catholic.
Well, okay, let's say, yeah, sure. Well,
I would say likely religious if they're putting that much effort. Like, and that's just true, right? I mean, that's like, I think that's statistically true. I think I've
had to bet money
right
on, yeah, if you had to bet money on it, you would probably say they're of a Christian faith of some kind.
In America for sure, yeah, because it's mostly. Honestly, if it were any bill, I would probably say that they're likely a Christian, right?
Okay, so that's not even.
If it was like an environmental protection bill, I'd say they're probably a Christian, right?
Sure, but specifically like an gay book bill or something like that, you would probably guess that was a Christian, and that the belief for him, the reasons for him doing that probably stems from his Christianity in some way, right?
I probably wouldn't. I'm really not thinking about that all up front. Those all like reasonably follow, but it's not really what's in my head. It's really just like, wow, this seems like you know. I'm not thinking that you like want kids to suffer, but it's like that's what would happen if this kind of thing were enacted. And I'm thinking about the kids suffering. That's the yikes. I'm not thinking about like what's in your head about that. It's something that I could think about, but it's not in that moment what's in my head.
Maybe not particularly you, but let's say
that okay.
Something like this, let's say something like this happens, and then it's in the news the next day, or someone's, they post about it on Twitter, and and you start to see comments from left-leaning profiles saying, "Oh, well, your Sky Daddy not real though," or Christianity, just Christianity strikes again, or something. Sometimes.
Yeah, I can buy into this hypothetical. This is definitely like plausible. Yeah.
This is definitely mapped onto reality pretty close, right?
Yep. Yeah. That's definitely definitely would be like within the mix. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I'm not at odds with just you, because you're much more reasonable, but a lot of people on your side are not so reasonable.
Well, wait. So what's the problem? So if you say let me think of how to. Would you mind if I say this in a cheeky way and then say that I don't like? I'm not trying to microaggress on you, but to say this in kind of a cheeky way. If you say my book, which is dictated by my not Sky Daddy but Heavenly Father, my Heavenly Father dictated this book that tells me that this is how we should live our lives, and so I'm trying to make it so everybody has to live their lives this way. And somebody says, "Oh, did your Sky Daddy say that?" Like. I see that that's a flippant reaction to something that you take very seriously, but is that really like the most hateful thing that you can imagine somebody saying to somebody else? Is that really like a violent, hateful, phobic kind of remark, or is that like really just straightforward?
That's one of the more mild ones. It's definitely not a favorable comment.
It's not favorable. They're opposed to you, but is it actual? I mean, this is kind of going back to the last conversation. Is it persecution for some people to like disagree with you, basically?
We would not. So the smart thing to do would not to end up on a slippery slope where it's like, okay, well, we took some microaggressions. That's fine. Whatever. We're hardy, sturdy people, right? We can take it. And then we just allow this type of attitude to just keep growing and festering without kind of standing up against it before it gets like too crazy. I mean, I see that as an equally bad problem. We're already on our back foot as it is, in a lot of.
I mean, have you considered that if you try to, or I don't know, maybe not you, but if you, some Christian politicians say, I guess to be kind of make a direct causal link, if some Christian politicians, or school district people or whatever, because of their Christian faith, decide to make unavailable to everyone's children information that might make their lives better, is it evil for them to push back against that and say, hey, we don't like this? Like, is that evil? Because you would do that if somebody were trying to ban the Bible from school libraries, right? You would probably push back very strongly against that, right?
Has that not been done before?
I have no idea. We could look into it.
I'm pretty sure that there are some places that have probably gotten rid of the Bible. I don't agree with it, but yeah, I mean, I think we're mostly a Christian nation. We're built by Christianity. I think we owe Christianity some credit for building the country we're in.
I think so. Yeah.
So I think on that note, as a kind of a historical honor, maybe we should keep the Bible in schools at least, even if you're secular or not Christian.
I would be very much opposed to the banning of the Bible in school libraries. I would be very opposed to that. Yeah. But if
I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very 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 like important, like partly historical, definitely religious document that's like critical for understanding a lot of the world. Like it would be foolish to ban it. And I'm against censorship. I think I'm a little bit surprised to hear how censor happy you are, because it seems like in my constellation of things, it's the kind of thing that you would be opposed to. Because you talked about how much you're against like cancel culture and.
Let me make my position more clear.
Please.
Let me first give you my secular argument, and then I could give you my religious argument. So my secular argument would be there are a bunch of stupid fucking books in schools that shouldn't be there, and they don't have anything to do with being gay or anything like that. They're just a bunch of stupid fucking useless books and useless knowledge in the public school system. I think the whole thing needs to be torn down and rebuilt, because I just think it sucks. And if we're not teaching kids the skills they need to get ahead in the world, then it doesn't belong there. So that's my secular position. So as far as
wait. So just, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off mid-argument, but just to ground this to what we're talking about. We're talking about a book about a true story about some penguins from a secular perspective. It's good for kids to learn.
Remember when?
Remember
in the beginning when I said I didn't want to hyper focus on any one.
Well, sure, but you would ban this book.
I would.
You had a yikes reaction, and you would ban it.
If it has, it depends on the grade. It depends on the grade. I wouldn't.
Let's say it's I don't know how many kids can read it. Let's say it's first grade. I don't know.
If you could remove, if it
maybe
does
kindergarten,
have
it's picture. I don't know, picture book maybe.
Yeah, no.
You can find a PDF.
Here's the thing: if it has homosexual overtones in it, maybe we could just remove those overtones and just have it purely be a story.
It's like two gender-neutral penguins. You want the penguins to be gender-neutral?
No, you don't even. I mean, you could just say their names.
Maybe it's
mention the names.
Is that something actually? Because we talked about it's not great for kids to learn about like heterosexual relationships early, or homosexual, maybe the solution is to
Too
make
early.
like is to make for like very early kindergarten, first grade, I don't know, second grade, just make all the characters gender neutral. Is that
Okay,
would be your
so
preference?
here's the second part of my secular argument. Now, it is hard to explain to a young child what gay is without kind of getting into the birds and the bees conversation, which I'm not.
No, it isn't.
You know, I'm kind of. Huh?
No, it isn't.
Okay, well let me just show you a kind of a way of maybe how this conversation might play out, right? So, let's say I'm trying to explain this book to my kid.
Okay.
Like, okay, so this is a book and it's got these, or let's say I'm trying to explain homosexuality to my young child, right?
Okay.
I'm like, okay, honey, you know, sometimes, you know, like there's mommy and daddy, but sometimes some kids got two mommies, and sometimes, you know, they got two daddies or whatever. And like, oh, why? Oh, because they love each other very much. I'm like, oh, you mean like the way you love your friends? And I'm like, well, no, not like the way I love my guy friends. It's a different type of love. Oh, well, what do you mean? You know how now we start going, because kids ask a billion questions. So now we start having to go down this rabbit hole into this conversation that they're just not ready for. You know, like I just don't want to ruin my kids' innocence by getting into that at such an early age. I don't want to have that conversation.
So what kind of conversation do you have when a kid sees, you know, a mom and a dad with a baby, and they start asking about that? What do you tell them?
My 5-year-old, she just says, "Hey, look, there's a mommy and a daddy and a baby." She just observes that as what it is. She doesn't really ask questions about it.
Sure, and she says, okay, are those people friends?
Well, no, she just kind of like, because she sees pictures of us, you know, me, my wife, and her, and then it's like, yeah, there's mommy, daddy, and baby you. And so later on, she'll see a family in public and be like, oh, there's a mommy and a daddy and a baby.
Okay,
right? So
I think I understand. So the mommy and daddy is so normalized to her that it's not something confusing that you have to even explain to her. This is kind of my reaction. Yes. So this is your anecdote from your kid. I can tell you an anecdote from my childhood, which is that I have actually multiple very close friends with two moms, and I never had to ask. I never thought to ask, oh, hey, what's going on with that? Are they friends? Like, please draw me a diagram of how they have sex. Like, I never had those reactions because I just grew up with that, seeing that normalized. So you're saying if kids saw that just as a thing, then they wouldn't have to ask about it. They wouldn't have to start asking these kind of more probing questions, right? Do you see how this is playing out? If these things are just available as just things that happen in the world, then you don't have to go into any of those birds and bees or whatever. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily have to do that in like kindergarten or first grade. Maybe, you know, it's important to have like a tiny bit of that, just first of all because kids are curious, and because also nowadays with the internet porn, that kind of thing is accessible very early, and it is good for kids to learn something from you rather than learning that, you know, from the internet. You know, it's good to put on internet, you know, controls and filters, but kids are pretty wily. And then the other thing is just like, yeah, when kids are learning, you know, in fourth grade, whatever, in fifth grade, sixth grade, they're learning more. But, you know, if you do teach kids a little bit about the birds and the bees and about consent and stuff like that, then they have the language to say if somebody's doing something bad. So some amount of that is like very critical for keeping kids safe.
So we laid down before my daughter went to school. We just told her certain things like, hey, if anyone touches you in certain places, like here or here, you got to tell us.
Yep.
That's basically
Exactly.
all.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like,
You don't have to go into that much detail of like, exactly what that means or why or whatever, but it's like, yeah, it's important to have a little bit of that conversation.
right.
At a young age, because that's also when kids unfortunately are the most vulnerable. It's important.
It's all age appropriate. So
Mm-hmm.
that, I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
that is my basically my secular argument is that if it doesn't teach kids how to be independent in the world and attain some form of financial independence,
Well,
I think
wait.
it's useless and shouldn't be there.
Wait. That's your argument for a kindergartner's book? You would give them like a finance stats textbook rather than Red Rover in kindergarten.
I'll bet you I would much prefer a finance book like directed for like made for kindergartners than whatever the Big Red Dog or whatever.
Okay. I mean, that's an interesting choice. Have you discussed this
Because
with
that's what,
like any
no, because
educators or?
I could read those stories to my kids at home. If I'm
Sure,
sending
that's
them to school
fair.
to get educated, if I'm sending them to school to get educated, I expect them to be educated.
So kids
That's
who are just learning to read for the first time, you would say, if it's not teaching them like useful life skills,
something useful,
then it's
right?
worthless. What if it's teaching them to read? Is that useful?
Well, they could learn to read while they're
Finance
reading
textbooks?
something useful. They could learn to read like a children's finance book or a children's cookbook or something, children's carpentry book, something useful, right? Like I've got books that that are for kids. You could do an animal book. Hey, you could learn the different animals.
What kid is getting a job knowing what different animals are? Who's going to pay
I
them
mean,
for that?
nature. If you're a very little kid and you want to learn about nature,
Well, wait,
that's
wait.
fine.
What about the Bible? You certainly wouldn't read them that because like qubits, nobody uses qubits anymore. There's no they're not going to learn how to program from the Bible. So you would say that's one thing that definitely wouldn't be age appropriate for young
Morality.
kids. Morality. Wait. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa, whoa. Wait. Morality is that a useful life skill?
Morality?
Morality? You think that's important for kids to learn? So a book that teaches
Yeah.
morality, that teaches how to treat people well, is valuable.
Sure.
So a book that shows two people raising a child and
Christian
keeping
morality. I'm sorry.
yeah keeping that child safe and happy and taken care of, that's like probably a positive thing for kids to learn about.
Is it a Christian relationship in that book?
So you would say like books that include Jewish characters, you would say like
Yeah.
fuck that, kids
I'm
shouldn't be
saying
around
morality,
things like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if
So
it's
so you don't want kids
immoral,
learning
it's
about gay people, Jews, Muslims, I guess Catholics, right? You don't want them learning about really anybody who isn't you, is what it is increasingly sounding like. Maybe I'm reaching, but that's
No,
so
yeah,
far
that would
what
be
it sounds
incredibly-
like.
That would be incredibly stupid. No, yeah. So in learning morality, you would get along with all those different groups.
In learning Christian morality?
Yes.
But in learning like Jewish morality, you'd start, I was I was gonna make a comment, but it sounds bad now. But yeah, I mean, you think that in general, like Jewish morality is like, you wouldn't get along with people. Only Christian morality.
It's not my place to say. I'm saying definitely
Well,
Christian morality makes.
It sounds like you're making
Christians
it your place, right?
It's not my
You want to
place
ban these things.
So it's not my place really to condemn other religions over mine. It's just my place to promote my religion over theirs. That's all.
Sure. I mean,
It's not putting.
is there some middle line between saying like, hey, here's why this thing is awesome, and saying these other things really just like shouldn't be here at all, right? Is there some middle ground between, or is it possible to just say like, here's the reasons why I think this thing is awesome, rather than saying everything that isn't this is like evil?
So the reason I think it's awesome is that Christians make uh, better neighbors for most people in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say it's the most humanitarian religion probably, and kind of the history has shown that with the good deeds that Christians have done in the world, whether it comes from building hospitals,
In the countries that they
building,
conquered,
yeah, yeah,
in the countries
conquering.
that
There's
they
nothing
came and
wrong.
killed everybody, they're building hospitals now.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sure. Just making
It's
sure I got that. Okay.
No, yeah, I have no qualms about Christians conquering.
Okay, murder, that's fine. That's not against Christian
Well,
morality.
there's a difference between murder and killing in Christian morality.
Okay, if somebody has gold and silver, then it's conquering. If it's like more kind of individual, interpersonal, then that's murder and that's wrong.
If so, okay, there have been times where God has called, Christians to do violence
And
name
Jews in the Old Testament as well. Yeah, genocide even.
and Jews, yeah, and
Yep.
Jews in the Old Testament.
Kill all the men, women,
And
children, animals even. Yeah.
yeah, but as as Christians, I think our main duty is not to like aimlessly carry out violence throughout the world anymore. Well, in today's because we already done most of the conquering that we needed to do.
Mm.
Um, Now we just need to protect what we have.
So you went out, killed a lot of people, converted a lot of people, and now you just need to keep them Christian so that they can be safe from violent people who might come and
So
try to kill them
so that mankind can be safe from extinction.
from extinction.
Yeah.
And you don't think that the
Christianity
conquering.
has been the greatest driver of mankind, and has been the doctrine we followed to gain dominion over this world as God has ordained it. And we've done so according to the book. So it seems like it works pretty well. It looks like as a playbook, it's played out for humans.
It's very good for
very
conquering.
well.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, conquering has some positive aspects to it. There are probably people today living in those countries that are grateful that it was conquered by Christians.
There probably are some for sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
like,
people
so
who are
I-
also not so happy about that. I don't know what
Yeah,
you know. Right.
Yeah,
It's kind
I
of
mean,
mixed.
well, I'm sorry God wasn't on their side, but like
If
thing is,
they won, was God on their side?
well, that perhaps maybe, and they were broken up into different tribes, but our destiny was manifested.
So what happens is God's will?
What happens in the name of Christianity is God's will.
Okay. So like,
A lot of things God created are kind of automatic systems that work independently, like nature.
so like if somebody were to say Gott mit uns, right? God is with us. They're probably like pretty righteous.
So you can misuse and bastardize Christianity, sure.
Okay. So
Or
we're getting a little
heretics.
bit more kind of drilling down here.
So like,
It's not
so like
all
God made
people
women.
who claim to conquer in the name of Christianity, but there's like kind of right and wrong.
Yeah, beware of false prophets is one of our, the things that is central to our belief system.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so people can weaponize our Christianity, but the thing is, anyone who knows anything about Hitler knows he wasn't a Christian. He could say and do what he needs to get the Christians on his side, which was a smart thing for him to do. in order to gain support. But it's like anyone can do that, right?
Anyone can do
Trump,
that. The church supported him, right?
yeah, a lot of people, the Germans supported pretty much. If you were like some kind, like the majority of Germany supported him.
At a certain
this is
point, once
kind
he
of
killed
like
the people who didn't, for
this,
sure,
this is
that
what
that helps.
this is what I call, this is kind of like a typical, like an atheist double standard argument, where it's like
I don't think so.
they
No.
can.
This is
It is
taking
because
exactly the words that you said. I'm not coming to you with, oh, God was an evil. You made the statement, if somebody conquers in the name of Christianity,
yeah.
they're just, and whatever, and if they win, then
But
they're
then,
just, whatever, right? And you
but you
amended
reference.
that once I brought you this example. So you're amending what you said
No, I'm
based
not.
on my
I'm not. I'm
feedback.
trying to. No, I'm not amending it. I'm trying to educate you on the difference between a prophet and a false prophet.
Okay, how do you know a true prophet versus a false prophet? Let's start there.
Well, so one thing, do you think Jesus would have gone out and like told us to throw 6 million Jews in an oven? Is that something Christ, you know, for what we know about Christ, is that something you think Christ would have asked of us to do?
I mean, my understanding of Christ versus your understanding of Christ is probably fairly
Okay.
different. So
Okay, so
so
there's the
yeah.
knowledge gap here.
Well, I don't think it's a knowledge gap. I think we
It
have
is.
different beliefs, right? So is it possible for two people to have different beliefs and them not just be like missing
No, it's not
information?
just a belief. It's a knowledge about belief. So I could have gaps in my knowledge of Jewish belief,
Okay.
and that's something I admit. It's a gap in my knowledge.
Hmm.
It's not a difference in belief.
Hmm.
It's just a gap in my knowledge of belief. So you have a gap of your knowledge of Christian belief.
Um, uh, there's a difference between a gap in a knowledge of Christian beliefs and how that applies to, what would Jesus do? What would Jesus sanction, right?
So knowing about Jesus would get you a lot farther to what you would, what you would guess Jesus would do. What you would guess
Right.
would be a good result.
Like hardcore studying Christian texts and Christian analysis of text will likely bring you to a more accurate understanding of the truth of what Christ would stand for. Is that
You just like drop the. I mean, if you just studied Christian text, you wouldn't. In nowhere in there would you get the notion that it's okay to exterminate 6 million Jews.
I mean, um, okay. I'm not trying to be obtuse, but we both just agreed that certainly the Old Testament, and I do have a knowledge gap about the New Testament. I don't know about
Okay.
genocide in the New Testament, but we agreed in the Old Testament, and you said that in general this is a thing that God does sanction. So I'm curious, like, why is that such just like an easy given? Why is that just obvious that that's impossible?
Why is it obvious that what's impossible? No, okay. So there
For
are
God to
natural
sanction the
enemies.
death of 6 million Jews versus the death of 100 million,
You just
I don't know, Aztecs and Mayans, and
Well,
right?
those people were against. They're considered pagans. They're also kind of hostile.
Sure.
They go
The
against.
Jews were people who, by definition, didn't believe in Jesus as the Messiah, right?
It's not the same though. It's if you. Well, it depends. If Christians washed up on a shore
Mm-hmm.
and came into conflict with a bunch of Jews and they were eating people and stuff like that, they wouldn't be looked at any different than the Aztecs or whatever who are chopping off
Is
baby
that
heads and letting
is that
them
what
roll down the
happened?
stairs of the pyramid. What's that?
Is that what happened? The conquistadors washed up on shore and then saw this bad stuff happening, and then
Well,
they
they definitely
decided
didn't
to.
get to where they didn't end up in the place they meant to go, right? They ended up in a place where that was kind of off. they were trying to find India. They didn't
Wait,
find India.
are you talking? You're talking about now um, about Columbus, right? Or
Who are you
I'm not
talking?
sure. I mean, I just said conquistadors just as one example, but
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously. So let's let's say you come from the society that is Christian. You learn all these things about what is acceptable and unacceptable, and definitely cannibalism is unacceptable. Human sacrifice, like in the manner that that Aztecs were doing it, was unacceptable. So if you come and they didn't. Also, it's a misconception that a couple boats full of conquistadors wiped out hundreds or however tens of
I mean, it was
millions
more
or
than
whatever.
a couple boats, surely. I mean, a huge amount of it was disease.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. The largest amount, the majority of it was disease.
Sure, but I mean, to go to North America, there was the whole like smallpox blankets thing. I'm pretty sure that's not been debunked or anything, as far as I'm aware. So there was intentional spreading of disease as well. So I mean, it's not like that was all just totally accidental.
No, no, yeah, I remember that. That is a thing that happened.
Um, but in your mind, that's all like good killing.
No, are you familiar with the term the butterfly effect?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So, a lot of people, when they look at God's actions and they're like, wow, God is so cruel, like how could he do these terrible things? Or how could he empower people to do such terrible things? Um, and it's okay for people to kind of question in that way because they don't have God's understanding of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So, God could probably see the butterfly effect as clear as day.
Mm-hmm.
And so if sometimes something bad happens, it's for the future good for some future good to happen.
Right. So in the Holocaust, the Nazis killed 6 million Jews, and now the Jews have their own state and an air force. So maybe that was God's will.
Well, remember, we also
Oh, your mic is kind of quiet,
what's
glitching.
wrong with it? Oh, is it? Okay. Let me see. Okay.
It's better
Can you
now.
hear me now?
Yeah. It's just a tiny bit quiet, but
Oh,
it's good. Yeah,
okay.
it's good now. It's good now.
So remember that there is another force at work here, right? So we have good and evil. I know you don't believe in Satan or Lucifer or
I mean,
anything
I don't
like
believe in
that.
it, in any of them, sure, but
Right. Right. So yeah, that is I would say like an opposite force going the other way, against God. So we can't. When I see
so you really
evil
can't
in the
know anything
world,
about what's happening with like God's will versus Satan's will, anything.
right. So when
So
I see something that couldn't maybe possibly have a good outcome, or it could be evil at work, and sometimes evil gets its way, but then God will come in and try to maybe influence us to correct that in some way. So maybe there's two parts to that scenario you played out. In one area, evil promotes the killing of 6 million Jews, and then on the other side, God says, okay, I'm going to, maybe create some conditions in which they gain their own state and blah, 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 right? So
so
I'm not
anything
saying that's
good that
exactly
happens
what
is God,
happened.
anything bad that happens is the devil.
Well, depends on people can interpret things that things that God did as bad and just misunderstand
Hmm.
or not understand what the future benefit of it would be. And then there are things that the devil does that are just pure evil. that may never have any kind of good outcome at all.
So
And
maybe the devil caused the Holocaust, and then God caused Jews to get a state, making a good thing happen out of a bad thing.
it's possible
But
that could
also
be very
maybe
well.
God caused the Holocaust so that a good thing could happen out of it.
I mean, there are definitely some people who believe that. I don't, you know,
But maybe God caused the
that's
Holocaust, and then He caused Jews to get a state so that they would, commit war crimes against Palestinians. So we really just don't know anything about what's happening at a kind of cosmic level because
well,
there's just a lot of
what we
different.
do know. What we do know for sure, these two forces are at odds with each other. It's constant battle, and
Uh-huh.
I'm advocating for. So, the way I look at kind of energy and the balancing of energy in the world and how that works and plays out is that it's kind of like the old stories about the vampire. It's very much kind of how I believe the devil works, which is there would be stories about a vampire coming to your window, but they cannot come inside unless you let them in. But once they're in, once you've let them in, now, now you're at their mercy, basically. So it's kind of like playing with certain energies that feed the devil. If you play with those energies, you're now opening kind of like a portal to his energy to influence you and gain more power in the world.
So is showing kids a book about two male penguins who adopt an egg and raise the baby that the chick that hatches from that egg, is that opening the door to evil?
Let me put you on the defense a little bit, and
Please,
I think because this is like taking the long road. I'm going to give us a shorter road to
please
kind of.
be
Okay,
our
so
Kwisatz Haderach and shorten the path.
yeah. So let's say I am the leader of the Christian nation or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and or not even that. Maybe I'm just a Christian principal at a school,
Okay.
right? Now, you are coming in here and you want to promote gay literature to be in my school.
Mm-hmm.
What good is like sell me this,
Yeah.
right? Like give
Perfect.
it to me. Give me the spiel. Like
Mm-hmm.
tell me
So
why I as a Christian should go against God to adopt your ideology and literature.
yeah, excellent question. Thank you. Um, so if kids from an early age have positive, even in this case, like it's an analogy because these are penguins, right? But it's showing basically a committed couple raising a kid, and that's the focus of the story. This is a positive role model for basically everybody. This is showing a positive, not hypersexualized, over-sexualized, debauched, whatever situation
Yeah.
for gay kids who are going to who are already gay and may not know that that's a thing. Some of those kids, without learning about that, might end up. Oh my gosh, am I dropping frames? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Hopefully this is going good. Um, if they don't learn about this, those kids might end up kind of repressing this, marrying somebody, divorcing them in a really messy way, partway through, kind of like damaging a huge number of lives for not accepting who they are, and even just
So
in schools.
hold on,
Um,
wait. Can I pause you
yeah,
there?
please go ahead.
Is this
This is
something you
something.
believe? Do you believe gay people, like confused
This is
gay
something
kids,
that
are going
happens.
out there
That I
and
know
they're
I know personally about the situation. Yeah.
so they go out there and you're saying they go out there and they damage a bunch of lives?
Yeah, I mean, if you're lying to yourself and your life partner, it's not going to end well in general.
Why? Hold on. why would you get married to someone you're not attracted to?
Because of the massive level of repression of just, just gay people being a thing that exists. That's unfortunately something that has happened a ton.
Um,
I have multiple people that I know, and who are
so
personally,
so
have this
in
life
this
background.
scenario, it sounds like it would be way more useful to teach kids like Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism than gay literature, because what you need to do is learn how to live with yourself and accept yourself.
Sure. I
And
mean, this is a
there's
much
just
more straightforward thing about that, because it's not just like, it's not just living with, there's certain things that are unavoidable. Suffering to some degree in life is unavoidable, and to some degree shouldn't even be avoided, because sometimes you need to suffer to do things that are important. Um, but it's very specific to say, gay people are a thing that exists. If you, a, it's okay to be gay, and if you're a gay man, it's okay to marry a man. If you're a gay woman, it's okay to marry a woman, and then you
oh,
can raise
okay, hold on,
kids.
pause.
If
Wait,
you're,
wait.
you
Why do
shouldn't
I?
marry
Why?
a woman that you're not attracted to and lie to each
Wait.
other. Um,
Now we're going. Now we're going way. We're going way far now. So why? Why in my Christian school do I want to teach that it's okay to be gay?
because it'll make everyone's lives better.
Because it'll make everyone's lives better. In what
Right?
way?
So the kids who are gay probably won't get bullied as much, because they're not only taught the idea that, being gay is bad and uncool and makes you, girly or whatever, which is also, I mean, that's kind of a separate issue, but
Hey,
just that it's
I
unacceptable and
I
you should be beat up for it. It makes those
yeah.
kids, have higher like self-esteem, and they'll be less likely to turn to drugs and alcohol for kind of like dealing with life's problems, if they can understand that this is like a real situation in the world. They're not like the only person who's ever felt this way.
So a book about two male penguins is going to solve all these problems?
Yeah, it's going to solve it all. I mean, look, this
That's
is this
amazing.
is this is one book doing one thing, but you were
I know, and
saying,
that's why I didn't want to hyper
well,
That's
sure,
why I
sure,
didn't want
sure,
to
sure,
hyper
sure,
focus on
but
one
it's
book. Yeah,
but it starts
but
here, because you said that your daughter understanding that heterosexuality is a thing and heterosexual couples exist started with
yeah,
you and your wife,
yeah.
right? It started with this one model of this one relationship, and she's seen others from other people in the world, but it started with one. And the difference between some kids seeing no examples or no positive examples and seeing one, I mean, that can be honestly the difference in the world. If you talk to, you know I've talked to people who are some kind of queer, who have grown up in very, very um, you know conservative Midwestern religious areas, where they really didn't fundamentally like know that this is a thing that even kind of like existed in the world, and they were just so confused growing up, and then learning about this, they were like, oh cool, okay, now I have a lot more information of like how to kind of like figure out my life. I wish I knew this earlier.
I
um,
think I think I got the gist of your reasons why you would want to have this.
hmm
Um, why? Well, okay. If where would Jesus's teaching fall short to where this goes so much further? Because if Jesus just
hmm
teaches to, love and accept each other, treat others, with kindness and all,
hmm
that type of thing, why why would that not be sufficient enough?
well, there's specific things. So it's like, Jesus says, "Do unto others what you'd have them do unto you." There's kind of, have you heard like a reversal of this? Like, don't do unto others what you wouldn't want done to you, which is kind of like a more careful way, or do unto others what they want done to them. None of these are like perfect, right? There's kind of like places
Right.
where this doesn't exactly work, but I mean, it's like, if somebody, if you love peanut butter sandwiches, but somebody else is allergic to peanut butter, don't give them a peanut butter sandwich, right? You have to know a
Right.
little bit about the particulars of some person, and to say, what it means to be
Right.
loving and accepting of somebody, you know,
If,
who
hold
is
on,
who
wait,
is
wait,
gay
wait.
versus
Hold
somebody
on.
who's straight. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I have to question, like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's
No, no, no,
like,
no, no. It's good. Please.
yeah, because there are just areas when that I need to ask questions for
Yeah,
clarification,
100%.
um, so we don't waste too much time. But it's like, okay, if your only worry is how these kids are treated in society, and my remedy, and the doctrine of Jesus kind of remedies this already. What is it you're saying that that doesn't do enough, or
So
did
I
you?
guess,
Is there
yeah, I
something
guess
you were
maybe I'm
missing
missing.
originally, or
Yes. So what is so if kids are taught, you know, love each other, be good to each other, but they're not taught gay people exist, and it's specifically, I mean, um,
well, they'll learn one day, right? They'll learn one day, but
well,
just not in maybe kindergarten, maybe,
yeah, I
or
mean, they'll
yeah,
we're we're in a world where, um, in general, growing up gay in a lot of places, you might get beat up for it. And so to say like, oh, if we just teach kids to be kind of good to each other, that's enough. But there's kind of a background of hate already there. I don't know.
yeah, I don't approve.
Yeah, are you kind of seeing, like, I guess when I'm trying to think of how to kind of clearly
No,
state
I don't,
this.
because if I saw that kind of hate, I would speak out against it
Mm-hmm.
for the in the re, for the reasons that Christians would.
Mm-hmm. Right, but I mean, I think there's like a fundamental thing here that we disagree about. That it's like my reason, my pro would be a con for you. So it's like I can explain it, but it's gonna go through an Uno reverse when it comes to like whether you think that's a good reason. My good reason will be your anti good reason. So
That's why
like,
I wanted to take this path, because I
yeah.
knew it would get us a lot closer, a lot faster
Mm-hmm.
to the issue. That's why I wanted to ask it in this way.
Right.
So you
So
already know.
right. So
You
if
already
I
know the answer.
yes. So if I say like, at a general level, I think you're probably very, on my side if I say something, broadly, like the kind of, if we can teach kids in whatever way to be productive members of society, treat each other well, settle down, uh, raise kids, have families, procreate, those are like broadly good things. I think you'll be, I think that's something that just at a basic level you're very for. And if I say this specifically will shorten that path for gay kids because they're not going to be um, growing up hating themselves as much and being hated as much, and they're going to grow up with a lot more kind of like self love, self acceptance, self esteem. They're more likely to get into healthier relationships, create healthy family lives, possibly
Well,
procreate.
well, what I'm going to say is that my response, my rebuttal to that is that the obvious better path to a better life than your path, in my opinion, would to just find God.
Just find God. How would can you go into more detail? Or actually, let me ask a more specific. So, if somebody's gay and they find God, how will that lead them to, settling down, getting married, and having kids? Like, how will that lead them to doing that more rapidly?
How would it? Well, I didn't. say necessarily it would. It would basically, you have to put yourself in touch with God and ask for his strength so that, you know, you can have the will to not act on your, you know, your gay nature.
So you would say that gay people just shouldn't have families is basically.
You could have a family, you can adopt a family and raise kids. Like you said before, we have no shortage of kids that need adoption.
So you think that, like, let's say, you know, two gay men or two gay women, like, should get married, should adopt kids, or, you know, procreate either through artificial insemination or a surrogate, but they shouldn't ever have any kind of sexual contact with each other. These
So
two married people.
if they have a relationship with God, and you know, if they sin, then that your relationship with God is still there. You just need to, you know, we all sin sometimes. That's why we all need to ask for forgiveness. I'm not saying it would be perfect. None of us are, but just finding that relationship and trying to keep in tune with that relationship to your best efforts is what I would advocate for.
Well, okay. So my question before, and the example, the scenario I laid out is to get to the bottom, to what end, right? So are you saying that, like, to do what? Sorry.
You do your best.
You do your best. I mean, I've talked to you. You know, now this is our tenth conversation, and one of the most, like, things that you've stressed more than anything is that it's important to marry and to procreate, and obviously to raise those kids well. You know, that's a part of it. But you know, to marry and to procreate, those are that's some of the, like, most stress things that you've said to me. And you've said, like,
the bedrock of my it's the bedrock of my worldview.
Yeah, it, like, one of the major, like, biggest things that you're concerned about right now is, like, falling birth rates, right? That's, like, a really huge.
A lot of people are. Yeah, it's a big, right? It's a scary concern. Yeah.
So the idea that it's like, so when I'm asking,
if anyone thinks that this is not a scary thing, just kind of, like, look at Japan and what they're going through, and just know that we're not very far off from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're in a better shape because we have, like, a lot more immigration. They're way more insular, but that's point taken when it comes to.
Yeah, we don't want to. We can do it ourselves if we just, you know, get God back in our lives. But
so my question when it comes to gay men and gay women is, when you're saying, you know, just have a relationship with God, I mean, like, is there some particular outcome that you think, like, in general is a good one, like getting married and having kids, or is it really just, like, whatever that relationship with God leads to, then that's good, even if, you know, they're not procreating and like, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
What would where in a Christian world would you know, being partnered and adopting kids, where,
or procreating?
No, that's, well, gay people can't naturally procreate.
You told me that you just met someone who did that. I have it here in my notes.
They didn't procreate. They used a surrogate.
What is procreation?
To me, well, by the Bible standards, it's the unity of a man and a woman.
Okay.
Two flesh becoming one. Yeah.
Okay. And what happens when you procreate?
You give birth.
You give
natural birth child. Yeah.
Yeah. Was a child born?
Yeah.
So a man and a woman.
Yeah, born out of a holy unity. Born out of a holy unity.
Okay. If people aren't married and they have a kid, it's not procreation. They didn't birth a child. It's like, I don't know.
That's
it's like
the way,
it's like an ET or something.
No, they birth a child. It just doesn't have it doesn't have the structure needed to be a good Christian in the world. Like to be a productive, the most productive, most functional member of society.
Well, so once you can write out, I think this would be a useful exercise. Write out for me what quantifiably that means, because at an empirical level, this study was done. I'll see if I can find you the study. It was all of Norway. They looked at mixed sex
Nor-
and same sex couples, gay men, so man man, woman man, and woman woman. And when they
Yeah.
looked at all outcomes when it comes to, success in school, you know, like mental health ratings, whatever kind of empirical things that you can study about how effective and functional a population is, there's no difference between these groups other than potentially woman woman was maybe a little bit better than the other two.
So, so
So so
my
empirically
particular
it's the
view on
case.
this.
So if you want to dispute that, write up some things that you think are important that weren't captured in there, and then let's take a look at that. But the
Don't need to
data
write it up. It
shows
comes out of
that
my.
at a
It's
functional
from my
level.
faith.
Sorry.
No, it's from my faith. I don't need to write it up. You already know why.
Okay, so when you were talking about being a functional member of society, you didn't mean that. You just mean some kind of
Raising.
spiritual thing that's in your head about being
No,
Christian. But you don't mean success in school, you don't mean happiness, you don't mean mental health, you don't mean life success in any of the ways that, people
I'm
consistently
talking
measure
about
things.
fulfilling Christian duties.
What are those Christian duties?
The Christian duty is to first unite in holy matrimony,
Okay.
man and woman, and once that unity has been ordained under God, you now have the duty to be fruitful and multiply. Within the context of that holy unity, now you have been given the okay to be blessed in that unity in your family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when you say, gay men, gay women get a relationship with God, there's
Yeah.
no place for them within that plan because they're not going to form those unions. So like, what do you want
Right.
from them, right?
Yeah, they can still, they may not be able to get married and have
Have kids.
um, have kids in that way because they won't have that type of relationship, right? But I think it would be, it's maybe their place in life or their place in destiny to be the adopted parents of children who need kids.
Why would you
I think
want children to be adopted into an unholy situation? I
no,
don't
no,
I
the
don't understand. What are you
unholy.
talking about?
Well, there's nothing unholy about two partners who just love each other, and they may have something that might be a spiritual defect about them, but if they have a relationship with God, they are then doing their best to curtail those desires and you know doing their best to contribute to society in a positive way that God would see that God would approve of.
So you're willing to sacrifice the birth rates for having gay people not okay, I shouldn't say procreate because you don't like that, but produce offspring.
No, by promoting the heterosexual birth rates through adopting more Christianity, it would pay off more in increasing the birth rate amongst cis people.
Well, gay people can be cis.
Um,
Most of them are
well, straight people.
straight people. Okay.
Yeah, because the thing is, I want to build a society that is basically like disaster proof. So let's say if we had like a solar flare and it wiped out all the electricity or whatever on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
that we would not end up with a bunch of people that say, "Oh no, I can't procreate anymore because my science isn't hooked up to power anymore, and we can't do all the sciencey things we did to get around the natural barriers that exist." So now, in a world where all science disappears or collapses or is no longer usable, people are still able to procreate because people are the population is still largely straight, largely procreating through natural means.
So to be clear, the percent of gay people
So
in all these scenarios would be the same. But what you're saying is you don't want gay people procreating to be a crutch that we as a
let
society
me
rely on for dealing with falling
let
birth
me
rates.
let me paint a hypothetical for you that might kind of
Okay.
help.
Yeah, let's
Um,
hear it.
so let's say I got two island nations, right?
Uh huh.
One only has gay people,
Mm-hmm.
and the other only has straight people,
Mm-hmm.
and they're both island nations are 50-50 male and female.
Okay.
Um, I think in one, if 100 years passes, I'm pretty sure I would be pretty sure that the straight nation would grow its population a lot quicker. That's just my educated guess. But let's say now, um, the gay nation uses a bunch of technology
Mm-hmm.
and other methods
Mm-hmm.
to procreate, right?
Okay.
Um, and let's say one day you get like like a solar flare or earthquake, something like that just takes down the whole power grid.
Mm-hmm.
We're all back in the Stone Age, kind of. Um, which nation is going to survive, in the next 100, 200 years? Do you think? Do you think
Mm-hmm.
they would have more trouble procreating and keeping up their birth rate in the straight nation or the gay nation?
Yeah, I mean, if the nation relies on technology and they don't have technology, it's gonna be a problem.
Right.
Okay, so in our society, there's some percent of people who are gay. In a Christian society, it would be the same percent of people who are gay.
Uh, the thing is, some kids can get confused if they're conditioned before their minds are
Here we
very
go.
mature.
So you think that this book about these penguins is
Not
actually
not
is
maybe
actually
not
turning some kids
particularly.
gay?
Well, not particularly the penguins, because at the end of the day they're penguins. But maybe if it was, books with people in it, it might be more influential towards at least normalizing it. Um,
Well, wait,
I
wait,
don't
wait.
know what I don't see what good normalizing uh, gayness would bring to human prosperity in that way.
So
I
I
I,
so I
I
get
mean,
so I gave a huge number of examples, but let's just stick on this point. Your two island societies with one population or another. The thing that's different between them is the percentage of people who are gay. Correct?
yeah, it's 100% gay on one island
Mm-hmm.
versus 100% straight on the other.
Okay. So right now, there's some percent of people who are gay, right? If
Uh-huh.
we make sure that children don't find out about gay people,
Well, not make sure. Now look, I'm
or if
not.
we
That's
if we
that's
if
kind of
we
like a.
if we don't go out of our way to help them discover
There
that
you
gay
go.
people exist, then
Yeah.
do you think that we'll actually have fewer gay people? Is that the Because it's the only thing that
we
makes
would
sense of your scenario,
we
right?
would have fewer people being confused about whether or not they're gay.
Do you? So I wanna stick on that point. So there's a classroom. 10 people are gay. 10 people are straight. Right? They just are. Or I mean, this is a scenario I'm pointing out. We can evaluate the assumptions of it, and maybe you don't agree with this, but 10 of them are straight, 10 of them are gay. In my mind, the least confused classroom is a classroom in which they're told, some people are straight, and that's what that can look like, and some people are gay, and this is what that can look like. The people who are straight will be like, oh yeah, I'm probably that. If they're in kindergarten, first grade, whatever, they haven't gone through puberty. Maybe they don't really know what the hell any of that means, right? So when you're pretty young, like you might not be able to actually relate to that in a very meaningful way. Um, and during puberty, a lot of people are confused about a lot of things because your hormones are going crazy, your brain is telling you all these different things, whatever. It's just confusing time in general. But if somebody is gay, being told that, oh no, that's like not a thing, I think that person is more likely to be confused. And somebody who's straight, I don't think
We
is
wouldn't.
really likely to be like all that confused and think that like maybe they're actually gay. I mean, I could tell you I had an experience in high school where I was like trying to figure out if I was gay, and then obviously later on figured out that bisexuality exists, and there's the kind of sexual orientation can be a spectrum, and it's not just all one category or another. Um, but I mean, more knowledge. I mean, sometimes it can be confusing, but it's pretty basic stuff. It's like being given, if I'm trying to sort all this stuff out, and I have resistors and capacitors, and I've got some range of what my resistors look like, and some range of my capacitors look like, but I'm supposed to just like put them in different bins for resistors, and there's no bins for capacitors. With the capacitors, I'm going to be like, well, which resistor does this look most like? But
I think
I'm not going to be
our
sorting them that
issue
well.
I think I'm seeing what it is. Okay, and I think this will help. I think
Mm-hmm.
my concern for humanity and the population is greater than my sympathy for a few confused gay kids.
Yeah, I don't think that is relevant. Can you or that doesn't make sense of this situation, because you would have to be saying that there's people who okay, let me see if I can find something for you in this. Are you saying that maybe there's people who could turn out maybe gay or straight, and if they don't really find out about gay people, maybe they'll like turn out straight? Is that
I just I
like
just don't see, like, I'm trying to look at two different worlds, right? And in one world, in the 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 baby boom happened in a mostly Christian nation when the nation was more Christian than it is today.
that is accurate?
And I just know that in that world, humanity's population thrives more than in
So
this current world where we're adopting a lot of, these ideologies
mhm.
and normalizing it, right? So I'm just comparing
No,
those
I
two
mean,
worlds to each other,
mhm.
and I know that there are other factors at
Okay, that
play,
was going to be my next question. Yes.
and I know there are other factors at play. My point is, why would I allow any additional factors when I could help it? So that's what I'm trying to look at here. We need to
Mhm.
get back to a more Christocentric
let's
like
get everybody
culture.
Christian, and then we'll worry about housing prices and wages and healthcare and childcare and stuff like that.
Yeah, as once we start producing more people, having more people will start to address those other problems.
So, what the
Because
hell
we're
does that
only going
have
to
to do
get
with the
more of
Penguin
those
book?
problems. We're only going to have more of those problems in a world where the birth rate continues to fall. Now, the problem with the Penguin book is if it's a gateway into more of that normalization, then you know what? Like maybe it's not something that mankind needs right now.
Wait,
Um,
so
and
okay,
that
I'm really really struggling as hard as I can here to try to follow the math of
yeah,
what you're saying, right? So
the math
so
of what I'm saying is that if more straight people, like more straight relationship and married relationships with two parents in the household, not
mhm
having babies out of wedlock,
mhm.
um, not celebrating so much like gay and trans stuff in society, that society will no doubtedly produce
So
more.
it's the second two things that I think are kind of relevant to our conversation. So, do you think that if straight kids find out that gay people can get married and have families and um,
Well, like, they
through the
can't get
process of
again.
through
They
the
can't get
process of a
married
sperm
in my
entering an
world.
egg can, well, they legally can and they religiously can, not in your version of Christianity, but obviously, you
Yeah.
know, the majority
In a
of
perverted
Americans
version of
support that. It's
Christianity, maybe,
legal.
yeah.
It happens, in churches and religious institutions. You don't think that they're real,
I,
but obviously they would say the same about you. So it's kind of a he said she
they,
said thing, right?
yeah, only, but
As
only one
most
of
people
us
in the country
is.
recognize it, as the majority of people in the country recognize it, they're married. Um,
I only care about if God recognizes it.
sure.
That's the only one who can recognize a
Okay.
marriage.
I mean, it's not even relevant to what I'm saying right now because I'm talking about straight people getting married, right?
Sure.
So, right. So, in a lot of societies, straight people will get married. That's a pretty common thing across the world. It's kind of
Yeah, but
consistent that like in
more
a lot of
religious
places.
people will get. Okay, now look at it.
No.
You're saying no, no. I'm saying yeah, but more religious people will get married on average than secular
Sure,
people.
sure, sure. Yeah, I'm not even really making. I'm really just struggling to get out a very, very simple point here. Okay,
Sure.
I think if you bear with me through like a sentence or two, I think this will be pretty clear. Um, straight kids will often marry other straight kids, or not as children, but later in life, you know, um,
Yeah.
and they'll have children, maybe yes, maybe no, more religious, maybe maybe more kids. For what you're saying to just like match up, for these pieces to match up into a puzzle that fits together, those straight kids in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, whatever, who are hearing about the fact that gay people exist, they're saying, I'm a little bit less likely to get married. I'm a little bit less likely to have kids. Even though
No,
this is a book about,
no. No,
okay.
not that. That's why I mentioned two things. So the promoting Christian ethics and those type of things will help twofold. One is like not going out and having a bunch of promiscuous sex and having a bunch of kids out of
Well,
wedlock.
how does this book promote that?
No, I'm not. I'm saying this is how the Christianity promotes more birth rates twofold. This is the first way it does that. The second way it does that is it obviously it teaches that we shouldn't endorse homosexual relationships because it's um, it's an evolutionary dead end.
Okay. If so do you think that straight people who are exposed to this book will have fewer kids?
No,
Do you think that gay people who are exposed to this book will have fewer kids? Well, it doesn't matter, right?
People on average are going to have fewer kids.
People on average will have fewer kids if they're exposed to this book, right?
No,
That's
no.
me.
Gay people on average just have fewer kids. That's
Oh,
what the
sure,
fact
sure,
is.
sure. Okay, but I'm talking about in the condition, exposure, non-exposure.
No,
So,
that's not my concern with the book.
okay, what is your concern with the book?
Normalizing homosexual relationships.
Okay, how does that relate to the birth rate?
Because you can, if you normalize it and it becomes something like a fad, like like South Park already made an episode about this, where
Yeah, I know
like
we
when,
talked about that. Yeah.
yeah, we kind of talked about it, where it's like there's certain fads come up where now sexualities become a fad, and now people who aren't even of that sexuality are trying to gel with that sexuality because it's a fad. And kids get into all kinds of stupid fucking fads all the time, and this is just another fad that I think is a lot more damaging, especially if it's more of the trans type of fad, because now you're doing things to your biology that render you infertile.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So let's just stick with gay. I mean, obviously you're not saying that being gay is a fad, right? That
Oh,
would be a
but
stupid thing to say,
but
right? You're not saying that. But you're saying right now there's something going on?
gay is a gateway to trans.
Gay is a gateway to trans. Okay.
Yeah.
Um okay. Wow. Okay. So this is now just a totally new can of worms. So we have to go a lot deeper then to get to how this can possibly connect together. Right. So it's not that being exposed to this book won't make anybody have fewer kids, but it'll make and it won't make people gayer. It might make people more accepting of being gay. I mean,
Normalizing, so it could create a fat. My fear when it comes to children and
okay.
being gay is that it can create a fad in which, by peer pressure, kids would get confused about not being, whether or not they're straight. They'll be confused about whether or not they're gay.
Okay. So, well, I think that's kind of
So
the same
if we,
thing. Um,
I wouldn't want to confuse kids into committing sin, basically, and then
sure.
not
Well,
just committing
you're
sin, but
specifically concerned about. Okay,
no,
wait. Let me ask these two questions just directly, and I gotta get
ignore
out
all
in a moment. So, are you concerned about gay kids
all of it.
thinking that they might be straight? I'm guessing you're mostly
All
concerned about straight kids thinking that they might be gay, right?
I'm
Is
yeah.
that a good guess?
That's the if just one straight kid gets
Mm-hmm.
confused that he's might be gay, that is
Mm-hmm.
one kid too many in my world.
Right. Okay. So you're worried that some kid will see this book, they'll think, "Oh, hey, maybe I'm gay," and then they won't get married, won't procreate, or lower rate, whatever, 1 in 100, whatever, some percentage of
So
kids.
hold on, can let me fix it a little bit. So
Okay.
my worry is that this book gets in,
Mm-hmm.
it then puts the foot in the door for
It
all these
brings more.
other
It
books
kind
to
of
get in.
it's a yeah. It'll be a slippery slope to
Then leads, it's a slippery
some other
slope
kind of
to
birds with an egg.
normalizing, and then after normalizing can turn into a fad, and then a fad
Mm-hmm.
turns into social pressure on
Suddenly,
the
all the
youth,
kids are
and then
gay, and
you
then there's just no babies at all.
yeah, and eventually they're not enough. Not no babies at all is at the end of the equation. Once you start
Mm-hmm.
having less babies, and you know humanity starts to collapse, we could get to like um, a critical population, a critical size population, where
Mm-hmm.
maybe we don't go extinct. But I would never want to get to a place where we're tangoing with extinction.
Mm-hmm.
Why, why even why even go that far? Why
Mm-hmm.
even say, hey, I know that the Bible got us this far in the right direction, but let's go against it a little bit and see what happens. And then we start to see the birth rates dropping, and we say, no, you know what? maybe we need a little more. I would say no, we don't need any more. We're seeing a bad enough outcome from it already. Let's at least put it on pause. Let's put it in the basement until we're in a better place with our population and our humanity in total.
So I'm struck by something, which is that your scenario of, you know, we have some population that is
But
basically upheld by technology. If a solar flare, knock it out, and now these people can't reproduce. It seems to me that danger holds, I would say, really, really one to one when it comes to, okay, we have not enough birth rate. We need more people. Let's do everything we, not everything we can. So again, you were clear that you didn't want like some kind of heavy, propaganda to make sure that no kids ever find out that being gay exists and every gay person is
no,
convinced that they're straight.
that,
Or
that,
like you were explicitly
that
not
you're
saying
loading
something
it.
like that.
You're loading it a little too much. Yeah, I would not say
I was trying to unload
hide
it.
the gay. I wouldn't say hide the gay people, burn all the books or
Exactly.
whatever. I would
That's
just
exactly
say,
what I was saying, that you were not
okay,
saying those things. I was saying that
right,
you were not saying that like we should try to convert all of the gay people to be straight or something, right? Like you're explicitly
yeah.
not saying something like that, right?
Basically, if I had it my way, I would think that most gay people would not notice any kind of change in the world at all, for the most part.
If things change to the world that you want to live in.
Yeah, I would say that it would like the gay people would barely feel it.
Um, but you do want a world in which no straight person ever thinks that they might be gay, right?
Right.
Is there some danger that you're creating in exactly the same way as when it comes to the technology? I guess it's much less, but it's still of the same sort, that you're repressing knowledge that people want to put out there about the existence of gay people, that if it were to get out, maybe I don't know, maybe 1%,
Well,
2%,
internet. We have
some percent of people
hold on.
who wait, let me give out this full example, and then see what you think of it. Okay. Um,
Okay. I did just pull up to home, by the
okay.
way, so I we do need to wrap it, but I will
Okay.
hear you out.
I'll make this like 30 seconds, maybe less.
Sure.
Um, we repress the explicit um, like description, transmission of knowledge that gay people exist in ways that people currently want to transmit it.
From
It's
children.
two children, um, for the fear that it will decrease the birth rate, among other things. But that's one particular thing for now that's focused on is the birth rate. Some kid sees this, thinks, oh, maybe I'm gay. Don't get straight married, don't have kids. Birth rate declines, and particularly straight birth rate declines. Um, but if your ability to keep these things out of schools goes away, then that occurs, and now whatever detriment to the birth rate was going to happen from that will now be unleashed in the same way, to a lesser degree, a much lesser degree, but in the same way they were talking about some reliance on technology, and then that technology gets wiped out by an EMP, whatever. Now that no longer exists, aren't you creating that capacity for like a sudden decline, some kind of fall, when your ability to prevent people from stocking libraries with books about gay penguins, whatever, right? Do you see how that's the same situation to a less serious degree?
Um,
Maybe you think it's still justified. I mean, right? I mean, because it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, but do you acknowledge that that's a potential pitfall of what you're proposing? It again doesn't mean on balance that it's not a good idea, but just one thing
So in
to be aware of.
so you're saying, in my view, that I could lead to another, like, it could also lead to an equally catastrophic drop in the birth rate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that makes, like, I don't think that at like an empirical, at like a like what you're saying logically, like those steps are comprehensible. I don't think that that's something that
Well,
could or will
I laid
happen.
it out.
But what you're saying is comprehensible. That's a comprehensible fear. I don't think that that's like.
There's two fears. That's one of them.
That's
one
yeah.
of
That's
them.
not how I would write up the math for that.
No, that's one outcome that I'm afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
The other outcome is just, evil winning in the face of Christianity. So if a bunch of, if let's say 75% of the parents of school going children to a particular school are Catholic, I mean, or Christian,
Okay.
right? And then this school says, well, screw you, I don't care what you think, we're having these gay books anyway. Then that means we're losing control.
You're not getting your way, and that's evil.
Yeah, because we're just letting it win against us. Like, why are we letting this in our house, basically?
Yeah. If you're not dominating other people, then that's evil.
If I'm not so by not letting them dominate us, is us dominating them?
So is it domination when everybody
Yes.
gets to have their reasonable books like within the library?
Oh, yes, absolutely. If by you having to by people getting to put anti-Christian things.
Well, it's not anti-Christian, surely.
It is.
Well,
It is.
Few people would agree with you. Few Christians would agree with you.
I would say a lot of Christians, the majority would agree with me.
Definitely not the majority. I mean, 70% of Americans are supportive of gay marriage, for example. We can try to break that down in terms of Christians.
There are errors with polling that I do not.
You think that's just an error in polling? You've read the study and you don't like that study, or you have a better study? Wait, so where does your figure come from?
I know for sure I do not need to explain to you how erroneous polling can be.
Wait, but you make the positive claim that most Christians feel this way. Where does that come from, if not polling?
Like, it is very rare that I see Christians promoting gay.
I see. This is something about your bubble and your echo chamber. People within your community don't say this.
So in the age of the internet, where I can look across the world and see much more strict, like, Christian nations where there are laws where they are way less friendly to gay people. So if I see that we're the most friendly Christian nation to homosexuality, that is my, being stuck in my bubble.
Well, that was your statement. Those were your words, right?
I have a window to the world in which I could see the contrast in how well we treat gay people compared to other, Christian nations who are like, hey, you guys are kind of pussies in America, kind of mocking us for being rolling over and just letting it happen. You think that's just me being stuck in my bubble.
Your words were, people that I talk to regularly, very few of them support this. Those were your words.
Okay. No, I don't think I said that.
You said exactly that.
I said most Christians in the world, I would bet money, would agree with me when we say we don't accept like
How would we verify
homosexuality.
that? You thinking that people agree with you? Surely you have to say that that's not a valid, demonstration of evidence of a claim that you think that it's true, right?
Hold on. If I could show you that that's true, would that change your mind on anything?
It would change my mind on to what degree you're speaking for, like Christians. I mean, Americans are against that, but maybe Christians are more for that.
Uh-huh. And so if I was able to verify that to you, then what?
Then it would mean that you're less of a minority within your faith. You're just a minority within the country.
So if I was okay, so if I was proven to you that I was not a minority in
Hmm.
my faith, and that we believe homosexuality to be immoral,
Hmm.
you believe that's a minority in Christianity.
Um, I said that I didn't have that information. I didn't have it broken down by faith.
So
Just
you're completely clueless about how much of a minority, majority
Well,
the
I mean, I'm not
opinion.
completely clueless. America is largely Christian, and the majority of Americans support gay marriage. But it's possible that when you break those down by religious affiliation, that Christians, that the majority are against gay marriage. That's
Yeah,
totally
that doesn't
possible.
exactly. So why don't we do? It would be more useful. Do a poll on how many you know conservative Christians have passed pro-gay bills compared to the ones passing anti-gay
Mm.
bills,
Hmm.
and you'll get a much better idea of what we believe in Christianity.
Sure.
Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean that's fair. Um, I mean,
Poll
I
like
mean.
now. That's why I would never use polling to, find out. And it's
Well,
polling of
wait.
Americans, not specifically Christians. So of course it's
Mhm.
erroneous in that
Well,
degree.
yeah, it's erroneous when it comes to whatever claims you can make about your faith. I mean, obviously, you can make whatever claims you want about,
Right.
like, if you were the only Christian in the world who believes something, I wouldn't claim that you're simply just wrong
Okay.
because you're the only, right? Like, if you make the claim that, oh, this is how Christians think, I'd point to empirical evidence otherwise if you were the only one. But I still wouldn't say that you're just wrong in your faith. I mean, I think most religious, or I would say that my view of what religions are to a very large degree is a personal relationship with some kind of faith. What other people in that faith believe isn't totally indicative of what that should be or how you should practice. I mean, you know, uh, none of us are Jesus. Obviously, Christians believe him to be special, but he was one man speaking, and people followed one man against the teachings of the Pharisees, and right. So I think there's a level of
Wasn't just a man.
individuality to that for sure. I'm just responding to your statements about, how much this is like all Christians, this is against Christianity, this is what all
I
Christians
said
believe,
most.
etc.
I said most. There are a lot of people who call themselves Christians who would not agree with me. I agree with
Hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's true. I mean, we had to disagree on that path just to get to where the truth that we already know. But I mean, it's fine. It happens sometimes.
What's the truth that we already know? What is that in
That,
reference to?
for a fact that the majority of Christians do not like they hold homosexuality to be kind of a negative.
No, we didn't establish
But
that.
oh god, really? So
What, what,
so you
what do you
don't
mean,
think
really?
so you
You said
don't
you
think
said you said that you don't like polling. I mean, I don't
it's
even.
in the
We
book.
didn't even
It's in
discuss how to
hold
how to
on.
do that.
It's in the so why do you think
You
why
re-
do you
you
think
reject many people who call themselves Christians as being Christians. Why would you try to make the argument to me that a poll of a majority when you don't agree on polls. Like, right? What's the statement that you're making to me that you're saying this is what the majority of Christians believe? I mean, just say this is my reading of the text, and this is right. Like, why do you need more than that?
That is the reading of the text that most Christians come to the understanding of, and that's why you see.
What do you mean? Most Christians come to the understanding of uh, you just said that like neither of those are things that we can really know. We can't really know who's a Christian exactly. Like you dispute with other Christians who's a Christian, and you dispute polling. So how could we know? How could we know that figure? I don't understand.
Just like I just said, we brought up an example that you agreed with me on. You said, look at the amount of conservative Christian, politicians who have passed pro-gay bills as opposed to anti-gay bills, and you already know what the answer is.
No, I mean for conservative evangelical Christians who are very vocal and very politically minded. There's obviously a lot more energy put into stripping away rights than giving rights.
What I'm
for
trying
sure.
to say is that it's not just a coincidence that they all end up, holding the same position.
I didn't say it was a coincidence. I said that
Well,
was clearly the case within this particular group. But I mean, you wouldn't say that
because
somebody who isn't politically minded is like not a true
they got
Christian or
elected.
something, right?
How do you think they got to where they are? They were elected by a Christian nation, by Christians, because they believe that those politicians represent their worldview. That's why we vote. Okay.
I mean, Biden was elected by a Christian nation, and he's for gay marriage
Yeah,
and for
you
gay
can't
rights and for
exactly.
trans rights,
You
for that
can't
matter.
even you can't even not be a Christian to get elected in this country at all. Now, to be a conservative Christian, it's hard not to recognize that, like as a conservative Christian, that we shouldn't promote homosexual um, lifestyles, right? Like that's not even something we got to argue about.
Wait, say that again.
That most conservative Christians, you would imagine, would not promote homosexual lifestyles.
Oh, sure. I mean, if you were to narrow it to conservative Christians, then I would say, yeah, the majority are probably against gay rights for sure. Yeah.
Most Christians are conservative. I think. I think most
Say
of the.
say that again. Most Christians are conservative.
I think there are.
I think there's definitely a correlation. But if you were to look
Yeah.
at like liberal Christians, they would probably be, um, probably by and large for gay marriage and gay rights.
Well, but I would say there's probably less liberal Christians than there are conservative ones. I would be interested to find that. I think I'm going to look into that
Yeah.
because
But I mean,
for sure,
how are you planning to do that? Because you said that we shouldn't take polls seriously.
well, polling isn't always like what I'm saying. It depends on what you're looking for. So if I'm looking for, Christians approve of gay marriage, I wouldn't go polling all Americans. I would specifically poll Christians. If I were
Wait. So what was your comment about polling?
My comment about polling is that you referenced it was your appeal to the poll that you referenced that was an error. You can't.
What was the error? I said that 70% of Americans support gay marriage, and I don't know within that what the breakdown is for a religion.
Look, if you can't let me talk and let me explain it, there's no way I can possibly explain it. So you just said you polled Americans on how they favor gay marriage, right? That's not how we would find out what Christians believe about gay marriage.
Yeah, I agree. And I said so at the time. And you said that there's also, you wouldn't believe in, you're not so sure about polling just in general.
I I said no. I said there's an error in how to use polling. There's a book called Lie with Statistics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh,
I've,
my
I've,
wife's
I've,
calling
I've
me.
heard of that book, yeah.
But that's basically an erroneous appeal to polling because what the poll you're looking at doesn't look for the answer you're trying to find.
No, I didn't say that it does. I wasn't
Okay.
lying with statistics. I said that you're a minority in the country. Um, I don't know exactly how that breaks down religiously. There's like, it could fall potentially on either side of that for the
Okay.
Christian breakdown, and then obviously you
But
see Christian as different than maybe how other people define Christian. So,
I hate to
right,
cut you off, but I do have to
you
go
gotta you
now.
gotta go. I've kept you for like 15 minutes, I think, since you've since you've
Yeah,
gotten home.
yeah.
Um,
Yes, I know we definitely need to clean this up. I agree. So we'll probably have to reschedule this. I'll keep in touch with you. I'll compile some things that might help you see um, the accuracy of what I'm saying.
Well, really, so
Uh,
the only thing that I really really need from you for this conversation is what kind of quantitative empirical things could you study about a population to see whether they're successful and functional that are not things, and I can try to find that Norway study for you, but are
okay, well,
not the kind of things that would show up in like normal sociological studies because you claim a different kind of functionality in the world other than like success in school and things like that, right?
yes. Um,
So that's
okay,
what I
for
need to know from you is what are those other things?
okay, cool.
All right, great talking.
All right.
Yeah, have a good
Yeah.
one. This time worked pretty
All
well
right.
for
You too.
me.
What's that?
This time works pretty well for me. This time of day. I mean, if
I know
6
it's
p.m.
just kind of
maybe it's
hard.
unusual for you.
It's just hard for me because I gotta cut it off abruptly every time I
No,
get to it.
I mean, if we hit it right at the 2 hour mark, right when you actually
Yeah.
arrive home, and maybe we could have like a timer that goes off, and like we just cut off the sentence wherever it is. Um,
Yeah, yeah, no problem. We'll figure it out. Definitely, it's been interesting. Thank you for the conversation. Um, we got a little lost in the weeds, but I'll figure out how we could clean it up and get
mhm.
to a better understanding of my position.
Yep. And next time we've got to talk about the persecution towards trans people. That obviously this is a big topic as well. So, but we can shift that to next time. All right. Take
Perfect.
care.
All right.
Have a good night.
Good one. Bye.
Bye bye. Yeah. So we had a goal of 2 topics for the conversation. I knew that was a little bit optimistic because there's a lot to say about this. The origination from this was there's a book. Let me pull this up. About a true story of 2 penguins at a zoo, 2 male penguins at a zoo, who were given an egg. It's called Tango Makes Three. They create a family together, given an egg, they help hatch, they raise the chick. And because we're talking about this in the context of book bannings and like what's some gay book that was banned, I thought this was kind of a good example because there's nothing else that anybody could consider objectionable in this other than the fact that there's some like gay allegory here, right? Except for those like birds are fake people, I guess. And yeah, I mean, KungFuJoe had a pretty strong reaction to this being a kids book. That young kids could be learning about the fact that some people are gay. And I think we did eventually get to it, which is that perhaps some kid who might have turned out straight would read this and turn out gay. And as he said, one child would be too many. So I mean, personally, I think those kind of absolutist stances, if one bad thing ever results from anything in a population of 300, I don't know, what are we, 20 million, 320 million people, then we just can't allow this thing to happen. It's not generally how we make policy in the world. You hear the same kind of appeals. If one person, if one American citizen is ever murdered by an illegal immigrant, then that's unacceptable. It's like, well, in a very large nation, we actually balance, different kinds of problems that occur, and we try to find the path forward that is just best for everybody. And also, being gay is not bad. And also, some people are gay. And also, KungFuJoe even talked about meeting a gay rabbi who had a kid via surrogacy. And we've talked before about, the potential dangers of bioengineering and, CRISPR applied to germline populations. But, surrogacy and artificial insemination are not, sci-fi technologies. These are things that in the past were done with a turkey baster, or, back in the day, if somebody who was, some gay couple wanted to have a kid and somebody wanted to be a surrogate, there's a technology. I won't explain the details of this technology, but there was a technology by which they could create a baby without using anything in the lab. That's something that has been an option for a long time. And what's crazy? I actually I meant to bring this up, but it slipped my mind during the conversation. Surrogacy is biblical. Surrogacy is not just biblical. Abraham and Sarah, the main character of the Torah of the Old Testament, she's having trouble conceiving, and she's like, go have a kid with the maid. That'll be our kid. So surrogacy is in the Bible with the main characters. So, it's at least that old. I don't think they had access to any lab equipment back then. Yeah. I want to hear him out, hear his concerns, and I want to try to build bridges. When it comes to me, it's hard to shake the feeling that this is like about something else, and wherever we eventually arrive is not really the main thing. These I don't want to psychoanalyze, but as a treat, I'll give myself 2 sentences. This kind of concern around what if everybody is suddenly gay. It feels like, what if everybody's suddenly gay? What if, everybody around me is not straight white Christian? What if some of them are atheists? What if some of them are Mexican? What if some of them are, what if some of them are gay? What if some of them are trans? It feels like being paranoid about this reality comes from, the sense of like not fitting in, being afraid of like, where's my place in that? What state is he from? I'm not sure. Can ask him next time. Adoption is a wonderful option for any parents, including those who are gay. Yeah. And we've talked about that. And he even said in this conversation that it would be good if gay people could, like, as friends, adopt and raise a kid, which I kind of pushed back on at the time. But I guess, technically speaking, that's like a very queer family situation. And that is something that we should support. I think absolutely, like, two friends. I don't think people should repress their sexuality and, not marry each other if they're into each other and that's what they want to do. But at the same time, two people who are just friends, being really close and having a very functional friend relationship, raising a kid can be a wonderful thing. And that's the kind of thing that, in general, queer people push for, which is to recognize relationships outside of the nuclear family. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how long that lasts as a proposal. Some kids in my daughter's school have gay parents, and it's so confusing to her. She asked why some people have two moms, and I said because they do. Some people have two dads. Then my kid said, okay, I went back to Legos, but I could tell it actually actually torn our family apart in that moment. I still have PTSD. Yeah, I mean that's pretty rough. Those are nightmare situations that people find themselves in every day. Um, I had a friend in school who had two moms, and I was like, "Oh, cool. Is there any juice? Do they have some orange juice? I hope it has pulp." It was rough. I was pretty confused. I didn't get it. Um, yeah, it was pretty terrible. I think I had a gay principal too. I was confused about it. Yeah, it's actually not so confusing. It's pretty straightforward, and especially because if kids don't know about the birds and the bees, then they see two people with a child, and they're like, yeah, okay, but oh, congratulations. Do the Jews have pulp? Do gay parents keep pulp OJ in their house? Is important. I mean, if we could do some kind of survey and we found out that gay people exclusively had pulp-free OJ and smooth peanut butter, I'm not sure I could continue to support that lifestyle.